in this game. You look at Machado's year, his OPS is over 1,000. He's leading the National League still an average at 358. He is playing every single day. He is the definitive de facto leader of this team right now, along, I think, in the pitching staff with Joe Musgrove. But, I mean, this is Manny's team. You know, Manny Machado, pushing 30 years of age, playing the best baseball of his career, trying to really fully stamp his legacy by doing one thing he hasn't done, which is to win a World Series, which will completely cap off, for me, his Hall of Fame candidacy. Yeah, there's work to be done. Of course, there is with any player that's in the middle of his career, but he's had over 50 hits already this year. He's, over 1,500 or pushing 1,500 for his career. He has a very realistic shot to get to 3,000. He's got a very realistic shot to get to 500. The only thing that's going to be missing from his resume is the World Series until he gets it here. So, and you could tell he's got a single track focus right now on winning. And that happens sometimes with players that have done everything else. He's accomplished everything. He's made the $300 million. He's won Gold Gloves. He's been on all-star teams. He's hit home runs. He's led teams to postseasons, whether that's Baltimore, getting traded to the Dodgers, helping the Padres in 2020, top 5 MVP finishes as well. I mean, he's done everything you can ask. And now the only thing still in front of Manny Machado is winning a World Series. And he's playing like a guy that's hungry. And I love seeing that because I think it's the hungriest he's ever been. You know, we didn't see that in the second half of 2019 under Andy Green. I thought he did everything in his power last year to kind of keep this thing stable. We saw what happened as it spilled out in that dugout in St. Louis between Machado and Tatis. I think ultimately that was a sign of leadership from Machado a year ago. And I just think he continues to grow off the field. It's really impacting the Padres right now on the field. Another one of these guys like Musgrove, where it's like, if you have his health, how can you bet against the Padres? If the Padres rotation stays healthy, how can you bet against the Padres? That's why it just feels much more real to me right now than it did even a year ago. And now, I might be talking out of both sides of my mouth. I'm sure I would have told you last year when they were 35-19, they were a good team. I'm sure I told you that. They're coming off 37-23. I know I would have told you that. But now that I have the perspective and hindsight, I feel as if what happened in 2021 is a lot different than what is happening in 2022. Now, I can't guarantee it. They have 122 games to play. So I can't guarantee that it's going to finish any differently. I have no idea. They could win 109 games this year. I kid. Or they could win 79 games, and nobody wants to see that. But they won 79 games last year. There is this, Alex. I mean, I think there's something you said for this. And thank you guys for weighing in here in the chat. I mean, this is a really interesting thing with Machado. Who was it that we had on recently? Was it Scott Miller? It was Scott Miller with the New York Times. He wrote that really fascinating, the third baseman's gambit piece in the New York Times. Check it out. Google it, about Machado's infatuation with chess. That's going back years and years and years to Baltimore. Okay, so Machado clearly has a wrap around baseball, right? Fairly or unfairly, and has a reputation with fans as well, specifically fan bases other than the Padres, I would say, maybe the Orioles as well. Machado is one of the few baseball players in today's generation that is polarizing, right? That nationally is discussed, that can trend when something happens that on a baseball field with some other player. If it happened with, Jake Cronenworth, it would get no national publicity. If it happened with Manny Machado, it would, right? I mean, we've seen that happen time and time again. What the rep was coming to San Diego, I don't think that's the player he is. I mean, I've watched every single game like all you have as well. I think it's an unfair reputation. I think he's mischaracterized, to be honest. And I think the reason I actually, though, am okay with his reputation and I'm okay when people say things like what Alex said, is I think that the only way he got to that point is because of how damn good of a baseball player he is. Like, nobody would care or hate or dislike Manny Machado if he wasn't the figure that he has been in the sport, which is someone that has taken the Orioles to the postseason multiple times, someone that was traded to the Dodgers, someone that signed a $300 million deal, someone that's finished in top 3 in MVP voting, someone that has made the Padres, a national brand along with Tatis and others. Like, it only happens. This is only possible when you have a brilliant player, kind of a one-of-one character for someone to even be disliked like this, like Manny Machado. And there's a lot of truth to it, Alex. You're right. You know what? And if he doesn't win an MVP because writers don't like him, If he doesn't make the first ballot because writers don't like him, I mean, we will always have our eyes and memories to know that, you know what? If you watched Manny Machado every single day, you watched a Hall of Fame caliber player. I think ultimately he's a Hall of Famer, by the way. I think he will be a Hall of Famer. I don't know if I would have said that 4 or 5 years ago when he first got here, but watching him every single day, watching him go about his business and watching him perform and play as consistently as he plays, and being a two-way player, so to speak, as good as he is in the field, um, his ability to stay on the field, which very few players do, to his ability over the last handful of years. Um, he's as good as you're going to find. He's as good if you've been watching the Padres for the last 50 years, there's very few players that have been as good as Manny Machado. Can we agree with that? I mean, how many players have been better than Manny Machado offensively for the Padres over the history of the franchise? Very few. I mean, we can all agree with that. And it's one of those love-hate things. Carter's right. If he's on your team, you love him, and if not, he gets booed mercifully, and he does well. He does well with that. Um, you know, yeah. I mean, everyone's envious of it. I think whenever there's an envy or jealousy, you get reactions that people get. Um, it is what it is. But if you've been watching like we've been watching, it's just like it's a joy to watch. I mean, it's an absolute joy to watch this guy play. It's just he makes it look so easy. He makes everything look so easy. And like Jesse said, thank you here, Jesse, for the super chat. There are people, I mean, non-Padres fans. I don't think there's any Padres fans that feel that way. I mean, I think he should be defended to the nth degree at this point. There have been some moments. Listen, I mean, Jim and I have mentioned it when he's had slow periods of time. We mention it. You need to perform better. They're paying you to be a leader in all areas, and that's why he's paid to perform. And right now he's performing, and he performed by and large last year. He was unbelievable for the final 2/3 of 2020 as well. This team looks nothing. It's unrecognizable without Manny Machado. This franchise is unrecognizable without Manny Machado. I mean, they're doing this without Fernando Tatis Jr., you know? So what does that say? I think that's another feather in Machado's MVP cap right now, is that he's carrying a team without arguably even a better offensive player in Fernando Tatis Jr. I think Machado has said before, like he's got the offensive tools that are, as good as anyone. I mean, and that's coming from a potential future Hall of Famer in Manny Machado. But you're right, Jesse. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate. This is a great point. This is a great point from our buddy. I think we were calling you Dot last night, our buddy Dot, or period. Reminds me of Ozzie Guillen's quote about AJ Pierzynski. If he's not on your team, you hate him. If he's on your team, oh no, you hate him a little less. No, if he's on your team, I mean, in that clubhouse, I guarantee they love him. I mean, there's absolutely no question. I've never heard anyone say anything other than the fact that he's a great teammate. I've never heard anyone other than that. I really haven't. That's interesting, Alex. Baseball is obviously such a different sport. It's so localized compared to basketball. Yeah, I think Kobe was a villain outside of LA, right? In certain markets, no question about it. There's no question about that. That's an interesting comparison. What do you guys think of that? That's interesting. I didn't need Tony Gwynn going into the Hall of Fame to know Tony Gwynn was a Hall of Famer. If Tony Gwynn was not in the Hall of Fame, it would change none of my opinion on Tony Gwynn. So, and I do think Machado will end up there. I don't know the path. I don't know the path. There'll be highs and lows. There'll be other moments still to come. There'll be controversies. There'll be there'll be spells. There'll be good play. There'll be bad play. There'll be winning moments. There'll be losing moments. But I think ultimately he will get there. And I do agree with this, Phil. Writers having control of awards is a mistake. I do. I agree with that. I think it's a really good point.